Welcome back into the Dynasty Nerds podcast. I am your host, Garrett Price, and I'm here with my good friend, Andrew Ma. Andrew, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good today, man. Doing good today. We went a little on the negative side last week. Talked about players that, like, I don't know that we trust it. I don't know that we believe it. We might want to sell these guys. This week, we get to be a little more positive, a little more optimistic on players that we're going to go out and try to acquire on our fantasy football teams, whether that's redraft, dynasty, whatever.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. It's hopefully for me, I think it's more a little dynasty focused. I do have some deeper rookie names and things like that. So it is a little bit more dynasty focused, but yeah, I think all of these players that we'll talk about today definitely have pathways to better days ahead maybe than what they've already had.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got some very interesting names. There was one that you sent over that I was like, oh, I really like this guy, and there might be a dip here because he hasn't done much yet, but I really like the player in the situation. So we will definitely be getting to that. All right. Well, let's not waste any time. Let's just get right into it. Last week, people either loved or hated our JJ McCarthy discourse. We're not gonna get back into that today. No more tinfoil hats or anything.
Yeah, I told you I took my list. My list was Jordan Mason, TJ Hawkinson, and JJ McCarthy. I took all of those guys off my buys list because you guys don't want to buy them. Only I do.
I love it. I love it. Although Jordan Mason, man, what a game.
Yeah.
Granted, for everything Vikings last week, it was a great game. But
yeah.
Might be the future. Might not just be, I'm filling in while Aaron Jones is gone. He might be the future of the team there. We'll see. But let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to go with, actually, you know what? Why don't you go ahead? Why don't you give us your first buy of the week?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Josh Downs as my first buy. Just a player that I think is super talented, but I'm looking across at some of these websites. The Dynasty Nerds website has him ranked as the wide receiver 44 in our super flex rankings. But on Keep Trade Cut and Fantasy Calc, he's outside of the top 50. So he's a little bit lower, pretty much everybody else, or everywhere else except for us. And I think there's just a few things that have maybe led to a slow start from Josh Downs. One of them, he was dealing with a preseason hamstring injury. That's one thing that he's kind of got off to the wrong foot with. And then he had an ankle injury that he was going into week 3 with. Obviously, I think the major reason why maybe there might be a little bit less targets than we've had in years past is Tyler Warren. And I think that's the real true reason why maybe there's a little bit of pause with this buy. But I still think this is a super talented player. He's young as anybody, 24 years old, should be a player that's going to be involved in this offense. And this offense looks better than we have expected going into the year. And I don't really think that that's going to change. I know that that can be a dangerous prediction because we've seen teams like the New Orleans Saints last year who looked good through, 2 or 3 weeks of football and then everything collapsed. It does feel like this is a better ran organization. This is a better ran team. This is a better, dare I say, a better quarterback than what Derek Carr was for the Saints. And I just think that there is a chance here where Josh Downs is being a little bit undervalued because he's been out of sight, out of mind, hasn't produced for us yet. But when I'm in a dynasty league and I'm looking for potential players to buy, I want players that are going to be young assets, undervalued assets that I think I can end up plugging into my starting lineup at some point in time. And I think Josh Downs fits all of those criterias. And so he's a player that I'm definitely looking at buying right now. If there is a dip, I was looking across at some of those websites, some of the names floating around him in those rankings, Wan'Dale Robinson, Troy Franklin, Keenan Allen, or a mid-2026 second. I think I'd be comfortable sending any of those for Josh Downs in the right situation.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you there. Looking at those names, I definitely would. The only one that would even give me slight pause is if I was a true contender. Keenan Allen is eating right now.
Right.
So he would be the only one, but that would have to be a very specific situation. I'm a top 2 team, and I need a wide receiver to contribute today. But outside of that, yeah, I would be willing to move Josh Downs for all of those. And you mentioned the entire offense. I think you're absolutely right. They're not beating up on cupcake teams. The Miami Dolphins wasn't a great team.
Yeah.
But you'll have that. But I mean, this last week against the Denver Broncos, I mean, that was one of the better defenses in the NFL last year. And now we're seeing it for 3 straight weeks, and they're not winning the exact same way each week. They're winning different ways. And this offense is just showing that they're incredibly resilient. And there will be better days ahead for Josh Downs. I do share your slight apprehension because I do think while I would be willing to buy this guy at cost right now, he might not have the ceiling that some of the other names have in this because of Tyler Warren being in the middle of the field and the reemergence of Michael Pittman now that the back seems to no longer be an issue and things like that. So I don't know that he's somebody that we could say, hey, watch for him to become a top 18 wide receiver anytime soon. But I do think he's a player that could become a wide receiver 3, where you're like, yes, he's a very solid, steady asset for my fantasy football team.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I think as well. I think, this was a player last year who kind of finished in that wide receiver 3 range. And I think even though there is added competition with Tyler Warren, with the offensive improvement, some of the efficiency improvement with this offense, I think he's a player that can kind of flirt back there as well. And I think he's a player, if you play in a league that has 3 starting wide receivers, or you play in a league that has 2 flex spots, or whatever it may be, where you have these extra lineup spots, I think Downs is a very safe player that you can end up plugging into those. And he can be a guy that you're considering at least as a flex on most weeks.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, let's get into my first one here. And I was trying to decide which guy I wanted to go with first. There's a lot of guys we could talk about, but I'm going to go with the running back position. I actually have 2 running backs, but I'm going to work my way up from kind of the most low key guys to guys that are like the biggest names. So let's start here with Woody Marks. Woody Marks, a player that's a rookie out of USC, and I'll say this before we begin. I didn't love his tape. I liked his tape. I didn't love his tape. But here's what I did really like. I did really like his pass catching chops, and I loved his situation and opportunity where he was being drafted. This team was willing to kind of move up in the draft. They used the 3rd round pick next year to move up into the 4th round to get him this year. And then on top of that, it goes into a situation where, okay, yeah, it's older aging running backs, and Joe Mixon might be done forever. Like we're still not sure what that is going to look like exactly. So we're kind of waiting to see how all that plays out. But each week he's been getting a little bit more and a little bit more work. And it's not because they're being blown out and they're just trying to get him some extra time. He had 3 carries and no targets in week 1, then 3 carries and 1 target in week 2. This past week he had 6 carries and 2 targets. Now, I get it, 8 opportunities is still not a crazy amount, but you can't wait until a player breaks out and then say, oh, now I'm going to go buy them because they broke out. Well, now you're having to pay the premium that you would for any other player that is producing at that level. So this is more of a speculative buy. This is more of a guy that I'm trying to, and I might not even do like just a 1-for-1 type deal, because sometimes people are like, what do you know about this guy? Like, why are you targeting him specifically? So sometimes it's better to, hey, I'm going to trade for a bigger name guy. Hey, if you throw in Woody Marks, that'll level out the deal. Like, that's the kind of move I'm trying to make for Woody Marks right now, because I do think this workload increase is going to continue. And look, I love Nick Chubb. He's one of my favorite running backs of all time, but he is not the guy that he was in Cleveland before that gruesome knee injury. It's the end of his career. And all the other guys there, Damian Pierce and Obungawale and all those guys, like none of them have any real upside or ceiling outside of Woody Marks. So for me, I think he's kind of one of those sneaky speculative ads that I want to have right now as a buy.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I mean, like you said, this is a player who you've seen the snap percentages and some of the stuff increase over the last couple of weeks. Like, this is a player who's just getting more and more involved. And it's not even something that I feel like has to be Woody Marks has to come in and impress. I think it's also just the fact that Nick Chubb is unimpressive at the moment. Like, he's a guy who's a volume play, and he's not really doing too much. And I think part of that is the bad offensive line that is there. And you said, too, in a PPR league, a guy who can get some receiving work is going to be Woody Marks. It's not going to be Nick Chubb. So I totally agree with you. I think this is a very interesting ad. It is crazy to me how much this offense needs Joe Mixon. And if he is not in this offense, they're in a world of hurt. And it's kind of showed up a lot. And I think we all kind of expected this with the offensive line. But without Mixon there to kind of make up for some of the lack of offensive line play with his talent, it's just showing a very bad Houston Texans offense. But if you're going to make a buy in this backfield, he is certainly the guy that I would be looking at. I know you said you're trying to get him thrown in, but like, is he a player that is worth a third round pick to you? Like, do you think a third round pick would be worth that, or would you go up to the late second?
Yeah, I would definitely give a third. I mean, I would have no problem with that. The late second would be tricky. It might be one of those, like, if you do just like kind of a I'm just trading for Woody Marks kind of thing, it might be one of those, okay, I'll give you my second and you give me Woody Marks in your third or something like that.
A little move back and you give me the fluff on top.
Yeah, exactly. That would probably be the most, because I don't know that I'm quite ready to give just a straight up second at this point. But we also have to remember, like, and this is something I have to remind myself at times too, because you'll post a trade like that and you give a late second for a Woody Marks and everybody will be like, you overpaid. And that's probably true based on what the market value is for a second round pick. But late seconds have about a 15% hit rate. Like, do you think Woody Marks has a 15% hit rate? Then maybe it's not as crazy as it seems. So I think we do overvalue, especially some of those later picks. We overvalue those assets a little too much. And sometimes it's just better to say, like, okay, I think this guy has a 25% chance of hitting and that only has a 15. So I'll go after this guy. Now, I'm pulling numbers out of my butt, but you get the concept.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good way to think about it. I think honestly, that's probably the way that everybody should think about it.
Yeah. These are all volatile assets when you're talking about this kind of range. Just if I'm spinning the wheel, which guy gives me the highest percentage to hit? Because they're all likely to not. Yeah. So what guy gives me the best shot to do it?
Yeah, I just went through the other day and was just like updating my rookie rankings now that we're a couple of weeks into the season. And it's just crazy how that late second round has just completely shifted from draft day to where it is now. And that just goes to show you, we think these guys are second round picks or we think these guys are going to be that valuable. And then by the time games come around, Alec Iamaner's up there. All of these other guys that were later round picks, they're moved up the draft board pretty significantly. Torrey Horton, Harold Fannin, all of these guys.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing. Once you get to that 2.6, 2.7, there's not a huge difference from 2.6, 2.7 to 4.1, 4.2. There's not a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, speaking of rookies, I'm going to take us to another one, and this one does get me a little bit nervous because there's not a lot of stuff that I have seen from Kaleb Johnson, running back of the Pittsburgh Steelers, to feel good about him. But it feels like he's being left for dead right now by the Dynasty community, and it feels like he's being left for dead a little bit by his own team there in Pittsburgh. But I'm looking across at these websites. We have him as the running back 24 on Dynasty Nerds. So he's kind of this guy that's flirting around the top 25.
And I think he'll probably drop a little bit. Like, we update it each week and he's been dropping like a little bit. My guess is he'll probably be somewhere between like 29-ish by the end of the week. We'll see. But
okay. Well, even with that being said, he is outside of the top 36 on both Keep Trade Cut and Fantasy Calc. So it seems like a lot of people are kind of done with it. I know I have a share of Kaleb Johnson in one of my leagues, and people have kind of been throwing around like, I'll give you a late third for him if you just want to get out. Like, that's kind of like the vibe that I feel like people are with Kaleb Johnson right now. But I'm looking at his pre-draft stuff, and I know that was a million years away at this point in time. But I'm like, this was my running back 6 in the class. I'm looking at the analytic profile. He has the size, the weight, the breakout age. He was an early declare as a true junior. The rushing share, the rushing yardage percentage, everything that he was doing there at Iowa was worthy of being an NFL caliber type of player. And he was drafted on day 2 by this regime. Now, obviously, this is a very weird time to be buying him because he was demoted by his own team going into week 3. But I think part of that, and maybe this is me really tinfoil hat speculatively, guessing here, I think that was punishment for the fumble drop thing that he had as a kick returner in that game. Yeah. And if that is the case, there's a lot of season left to play, and you can go by a guy like Kaleb Johnson, who we saw has the measurables, has the analytic profile, has the draft capital that you look for. And it's not too long ago that we were talking about this guy as a fringe first-round pick, a early second-round pick in those rookie drafts. And I'm looking at the market today. People are trading Ollie Gordon for Kaleb Johnson right now. People are trading Dylan Sampson for Kaleb Johnson. You could go move a early third or a late 2026 second probably for Kaleb Johnson, or players that are maybe a little bit more exciting today. Hollywood Brown, move Hollywood Brown for Kaleb Johnson. Somebody might want the points in their lineup. You could move a guy like Tajay Spears, who's coming back off of IR, for Kaleb Johnson. And this is scary. It's risky. Like I said, this is the one I feel the least comfortable about because there has been so much bad press. But I just want to buy young players that I believe have the mold here to be successful. And just Kaleb Johnson's a guy that at this cost, I'm willing to roll the dice. And if I miss, I miss. It is what it is. Like the cost of getting in on Kaleb Johnson at this point in time is not going to derail my dynasty fantasy football team. So
No.
I'm just willing to take the shot there and see what happens. Like I said, a 22-year-old running back that has day 2 draft capital and an offense that wants to run the football. And really the competition above him shouldn't be that hard to beat in the long run with Jalen Warren and Kenny Gainwell.
You know, I just talked about Woody Marks, and obviously I'm in on buying him. That's why he was a part of this video. But if I had to choose between those guys at the same cost, which right now I don't think their cost is going to be drastically different, I would choose Kaleb Johnson over Woody Marks. And it goes back to what we just talked about. Like, what level of confidence do I have that this guy's going to hit? And Mike Tomlin is an old school coach. He's an old school guy, which is part of what's made him a really good coach. Part of what's, held him back a little bit at times as well. But all of that being said, I think back to Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick drafted, and I want to say it was the 3rd round as well. Maybe it was the 4th, but Damian Harris out of Alabama. They drafted him his entire rookie season. He didn't play. Not only did he not play, he wasn't even active most of the weeks, if not all of them. Like he just did not play. What happened in year 2? Starting running back. Now that didn't last forever, but sometimes coaches just say, hey, we liked you enough to draft you, but we think you have some growing and some maturing to do. And I think that's the situation here is, hey, we're not giving up on you, but right now we think that you have some room to grow and we need to win today. Aaron Rodgers does not have time for you to learn on the fly. Like Mike Tomlin doesn't have time. We don't even know that he'll still be with this team, depending on how things go. Like, they don't have time to wait on Kaleb Johnson. So you work on stuff in the background, you get better in the background, and we'll get back to you when we think that you're at a point where you can contribute. He is going to get a shot. I would be shocked if he does not get a legitimate shot to earn at least a big chunk, if not the lead back on this team. It is going to happen. You're just going to have to be patient. So especially in some of those rebuilds where I don't even want points anyway. I'm trying to make my draft pick as high as humanly possible. He's a great player to add because he's not giving you any points. So it's a nice way to like legally tank and just kind of let's see what happens at the end of 25, at the beginning of 26, and see if he's a player that can contribute for me.
Exactly. It's just a player that has to be ready when his number's called, and it hasn't been called yet. Let's be honest too. We have seen Arthur Smith do this before, where he's had Tyler Algiers running, a little bit more than Bijan Robinson at the start of his career. We've seen him have, all these other players where it's just like, Arthur Smith, what are we doing? But he just leans on the veteran when you have these rookie running backs or you have these rookie players. And that's just kind of been his MO. And it's worked for him. I mean, he keeps getting hired for jobs and things like that. And his teams have been fairly good for the most part of where he's been at. So I can't knock it too much, but it's like, we probably should have expected Kaleb Johnson to come in. I don't think we should have expected this, but I think we should have expected a little bit slower, not hit the ground running as the full-on bell cow of this offense. But I agree with you totally on the Aaron Rodgers thing. Like, they may just say Jalen Warren's the best veteran guy for us today. And with Aaron Rodgers on this team, we got 1 year right here probably where Aaron's going to be our quarterback. And then next year, who knows what's going to happen, but we can transition and turn that new leaf over going into 2026 with maybe a rookie quarterback and Kaleb Johnson in the backfield.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to my second guy here. And this is the one that I'm probably the most excited about of all of my buys. It's Chris Olave. Chris Olave, Andrew, I think you and I were even talking about him on one of the many shows we're doing. I don't remember which one, but I think we were touching on him a little bit. And this week just continued in the trend of what Chris Olave has been doing all season. Week 1, 13 targets. Week 2, 10 targets. Week 3, 14 targets. Just an ungodly amount of targets. That equates to 12.3 targets per game. An unreal number. Let's say that normalizes a little bit. Let's say he just goes down to averaging 10 targets a game. That would be 170 targets on the season. That is wide receiver overall number 1 type range as far as targets go. You're usually looking at somebody between 160 to 175 targets as top 3 type receivers in the NFL for fantasy football purposes. He has an unreal workload right now. Now, why is he still able to be acquired? Because right now he's only wide receiver 24 overall on the season. He's only averaging a little over 13 points per game. And you're like, well, that means, is he bad if he's getting that much? Like, listen, here's the thing. This offense is bad. It is not a good offense. But he's also scored 0 touchdowns so far. All it takes is accidentally falling into the end zone a few times and just breaking 1 or 2 of these targets. Everything so far has been close to the line of scrimmage, low key. That's offered you the perfect buy window because it shows us the volume is there, but the efficiency isn't quite there yet. All we need is a lucky break or 2, and we're talking about this guy as a top 12, maybe even top 8 type fantasy receiver. So right now, the biggest question mark is going to be, can he stay healthy? Because that's been an issue over the course of his career. But if he stays healthy, we could be like, holy crap, how did we not see this coming? He is one of the best sneaky buy lows in fantasy football right now.
Yeah, I love it. And I think it was the start sit show that we were talking about.
Okay,
Olave,
that was probably
because I think people were questioning whether they should plug him into the lineup. And it was like, the volume is there. You just keep plugging the guys in who get the volume, and eventually the points come. And so I fully agree. Olave is a guy that I'm interested in. And even, looking a little bit more long-term maybe with Olave than even just this year. I know you're talking about being a target leader this year in the league, but I think next year this is a team that's going to have quarterback improvement. They're going to be a team that can go out and draft one of these top rookies in the NFL draft, or could go out and get a veteran guy or whatever it may be. I don't think Tyler Shuck and I don't think Spencer Rattler are the long-term answer here for Kellen Moore. I think he wants to go get his guy. And when that happens, it's not guaranteed, but there's a good chance that the efficiencies do go up, if not before then, for Chris Olave. So even though this is a player that has a bad offense this year and could still, be very, very fantasy football relevant with the volume this year, there's going to be a better chance of efficiency long-term with him too. And he's not an old player. He's a player that's still, correct me if I think he's still right on his rookie contract still. He hasn't even gotten into that. Yeah, he hasn't even gotten into that second contract yet.
25 years old right now.
Yeah, so this is a player that you can still bank on no matter if you're a contender or a rebuilder. You can put him on any type of lineup, and you can just have him be a guy that you're buying as a wide receiver 2, maybe even a wide receiver 3, depending on how your league is viewing Chris Olave, and you can plug him into your lineup and get potentially wide receiver 1 numbers in a year from now when some of these things improve a little bit. So I definitely love the Chris Olave pick. I've been big fan of buying Chris Olave. I was buying Chris Olave last season in the offseason when it was like the concussion stuff was at an all-time high. People were talking about Chris Olave is going to retire. He's not going to play football. He's the next Tua at the wide receiver position. And it's like, I get it. The concussion stuff, it's concerning. If Tua hasn't retired from this, Chris Olave isn't retiring from this either. And I'm telling you right now, I can buy Chris Olave for cheap. So I've been on the Chris Olave buy train for a while, and it's good to see, some major signs of life here from Olave.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, and the last note that I had too, that I forgot to mention, he's got the ninth easiest schedule for wide receivers according to Fantasy Pros. So, pretty nice, easy, soft landing spot from here on out. So, Andrew, who do you got for your last buy?
Yeah, my last buy here is going to be Mason Taylor, tight end for the New York
Love
Jets.
this one. Love this one.
I just was, again, I told you, I've been referencing these websites just to see kind of where we're at as a company and where everybody else in the community is at. And
Mhm.
either we are so high on Mason
I,
Taylor,
I
or
guarantee I'm contributing to that.
that's fair. That's fair. I like Mason Taylor a lot too. But the community's very low on Mason Taylor as well because we have him as the tight end 12. Sure, probably a little bit
He
high for
probably needs to
Mason
bump
Taylor.
down a little bit, I guess.
Fantasy Calc has him as the tight end 21 right now. Keep Trade Cut has him as the tight end 18. He is so low down these rankings that players that I would trade in a heartbeat for Mason Taylor are ahead of him, like Juwan Johnson, who's starting out the year hot. I would move Juwan Johnson for Mason Taylor all day long. Blake Corum is ahead of him. Hollywood Brown is ahead of him. Ramondre Stevenson, Marvin Mims. These are the names that are ahead of Mason Taylor on these websites that your league mates are probably using when they're trying to find rankings and things like that. Hopefully they're using Dynasty Nerds, but if they're using some of the other stuff, that is what they're seeing. I would trade that in a heartbeat for Mason Taylor. When you look at the start of the year, obviously the production hasn't come yet. Rookie tight ends, this is going to take time every once in a while. It's not every rookie tight end is going to be Brock Bowers or Sam Laporta or these other guys that come in and just blow up immediately for their team. But I look at all of the things around Mason Taylor. Preseason injury probably contributing a little bit to a slower start for Mason Taylor. But when you look at the snap percentages, the route percentages, how many routes he's running for this offense, it is off the charts. This is exactly what you want to see. You want to see Mason Taylor out here running routes for his team, for a team that only has Garrett Wilson in the receiving game and nobody else. So even though the start of the year has been 1 target and 1 catch for 20 yards, 2 targets, 1 catch for 5 yards. Week 3, 6 targets, 4 catches for 18 yards. So we just saw a little bit of a bump. Obviously, the yardage isn't there yet. He hasn't gotten into the end zone. But I think this is a player where better days are ahead. It seems like he's been out of sight, out of mind. People have forgot about him. And I still think he's super talented. Was my tight end 3 in this year's class. And it still remains the same. I know Harold Fannin has got off to a good start and things like that. I have not moved him above Mason Taylor in my
I was going to ask you,
rankings.
who would you take? Would you take Mason Taylor or Harold Fannin?
I would still go with Mason Taylor. I think he is the more talented player, and I like the situation for him more, despite some of the usage we have seen from Fannin. But I'm just going to trust my gut here and just follow Mason Taylor and some of the pre-draft analysis. And I'm buying him right now at those prices because, I mean, you just showed, Garrett, like when I said some of those names, you were like, what the heck is, like, why are these players above him? But this is what happens sometimes in season where players start seeing, dynasty players specifically, they start seeing points being scored in the lineup, and all of their off-season analysis of this player has a good situation and this player has potential and this player is young, all of a sudden you start seeing points hit the lineup and it's like, ooh, I don't want these guys anymore. I want the guys that are scoring points. So if you can find those guys in your fantasy football leagues that will buy
regardless
the
if there's 7 or 8 points, they're like, ooh, I want that. Like,
yeah, I don't want Mason Taylor who's going to keep giving me 1 point or 3 points for the first 2 weeks of his career, by the way. I would rather have Hollywood Brown, who saw 16 targets in week 1 when Xavier Worthy went down. Like that's what people do, and they get reactive. So I would be doing that. I would be selling Juwan Johnson. I would sell Hollywood Brown. I would sell all of these players for Mason Taylor. And I truly do believe, like, we wouldn't accept those deals, Garrett, but I think people would see those names and the production that has been attached to those names and consider it at the minimum. And you may be able to throw in sweeteners like, take this 3rd round pick in 2026 with Juwan Johnson and give me Mason Taylor, and people will do it.
Absolutely, man. That's absurd to me. Like, what are we doing here, people? I get it. And you're absolutely right. It's the points thing. Once they start seeing, well, this guy's only getting me 2 and 3 points, and this guy could get me 7 or 8 points. I want that guy. Okay. Yes. But when are you plugging in a 7 or 8 point guy into your lineup? Never. You're not plugging that type of guy into your lineup. You're just not. They're roster cloggers. That's all they are. Give me the upside of at least somebody that could be a difference maker at tight end. Willie, I don't know, but at least give me the chance. At least give me the hope to be able to do it. Like, I don't know. That's crazy to me, naming some of those names. That's makes no sense.
It's the, I won't call it the disease of the Dynasty social media space, but in the offseason, what do we want, Garrett? Everybody wants to be able to post the screenshot of the team and have everybody be like, ooh, that's a really good Dynasty team. Are you playing in an 8-man league? Like, that's what we want people to do, right? But then when it comes to actual fantasy football season, I could have the prettiest lineup of all of the offseason gems and all of the others, but they're not scoring points. And all I care about in season is whether I'm getting that win or the loss on the scoreboard at the end of the week. And I think there are some people, not the savviest of Dynasty managers, but there are some people that play into the season of Dynasty. I want the prettiest roster now, but now that I've had the prettiest roster, I'm willing to trade it for points to help me win games.
Hey, Nerd Herd, want to tell you about a show that we've been doing live on YouTube where we go over your teams and we talk about how to fix your broken roster. It's called Roster Rescue. We do it live every single Monday at noon Eastern time. And if you want to get a part of that, just head to our Dynasty Nerds homepage, go under the store tab, and you'll find Roster Rescue right there. Perfect opportunity to get your rosters in shape before the season or even in the middle of the season to make sure that you can win a championship. All right, well, let's get to our final guy here. And this one is a contender special. This one isn't one that I'm going to recommend to necessarily every team, but this is one where if you're like, I'm in a window where I could win it all. I really could use another piece though. Who's somebody that I could go out that isn't going to break the bank? And I think that guy is Josh Jacobs. Because look, yes, would we love to have Jonathan Taylor on our team right now? Absolutely. But the price for Jonathan Taylor right now is absolutely absurd. We're not going to be able to get a guy like that at the moment. But who's a guy in a similar age range that could put up some legitimate numbers? I think that's Josh Jacobs of the Green Bay Packers. Now, when we look at what he's done in the past, he has been an RB1 almost every single year of his career. We're just looking at that one where you know, there was the contract and started late and all that. He wasn't an RB1 that year, but basically every other season of his career, he's been an RB1. So you know that there's steady, solid production. This offense looks to be in the best spot that they've been in years. Now, I get it. This past week against Cleveland was not a great game. But even going into that game, I was trying to tell people, look, the defensive line and the secondary for the Browns are extremely legitimate. I get the Ravens game didn't look good, but it was because they turned the ball over and special teams did not play great. This is a good defense. And the Green Bay Packers saw that. But here's the thing. Even despite all of that, Josh Jacobs, without having any boom games, has been really consistent. 14 points, 14 points, 12 points. He has not lost you any week, and he's going to be, and I think, honestly, that's his floor. Like, that's Josh Jacobs' floor is that 12 to 14 point range. He's going to get you that 85, 90% of the time he's going to get you that. But he's also going to give you weeks where he's getting you 25, 28 points because he's getting in the end zone. He's catching passes in this offense. And I'm looking at trades right now that make perfect sense to me if I'm a contender. Tell me what you think of these trades. I found all these on the Dynasty Nerds trade browser. Josh Jacobs straight up for a 26 first. What would you do?
Done. Give me Jacobs. I made that trade during my rookie draft this year. I traded my late first for Josh Jacobs.
Love it. First and third for Jacobs and a fourth. Same thing?
Third doesn't matter. It's just fluff to get it over the line.
Absolutely. Bryce Young and Tony Pollard or Josh Jacobs and Matthew Stafford. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, give me Jacobs and Stafford, especially if I'm contending.
Absolutely. That's what I was thinking too. Perfect for contender. Last one here. This one will hit home. Jordan Addison in a third and fourth for Josh Jacobs. What do you think?
Yeah, Josh Jacobs for a contender. I obviously like Jordan Addison as a dynasty asset, but yeah, just give me Josh Jacobs there.
That's what I'm thinking too. So I think right now his price is very affordable for a guy with his consistency level. He's still 27 years old, which I know at one point we thought was a death sentence, but now we see guys like Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley out there, and guys that are, to use a term that I don't want to take too lightly, but guys that are built different, guys that are, a little bit more special, a little more consistent. These first round, these high pedigree type running backs tend to have a little bit longer life. And we also see just modern medicine keeping up with these guys. So I don't think that's a death sentence. I think we could still get 2, maybe even 3 good years left out of Josh Jacobs. But even if it's just the thing that puts it over the line for me to win a championship this year, would I give my first round pick today to win a championship? Absolutely. And if that's what I think Josh Jacobs can do, it's worth it.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, looking at the schedule that he has had to deal with to start the year, Detroit, Washington's defensive line, Cleveland, like these are tougher matchups. And the data backs that up to start the year. When you look at some of the tougher running back matchups, it has been those teams. Looking at the upcoming schedule for Josh Jacobs, you better buy him now, folks, because Dallas, who's been bleeding points, Cincinnati, Arizona, Pittsburgh, and Carolina are 5 of his next 6 weeks, including that bye week in week 5. So you can go get Josh Jacobs before about a month of really, really good fantasy football matchups for him, where he could end up having those big weeks that Garrett's talking about, 25, 28 points, because he's getting into the end zone, once or twice in a game against the Panthers or against the Bengals defense. So this is the time to buy him right now. If people aren't paying attention to upcoming matchups, right now it does look like he's about to enter a very, very sweet spot of his schedule for him for fantasy football production. So go get him right now before he starts putting up the big games.
And I love that you mentioned that. And when we're looking at the end of the year, which matters a lot, he gets to play the Bears twice. That Bears team defensively does not look good. He gets them in week 14 and in week 16. So really, really love having those types of matchups late in the year. Well, Andrew, that wraps up our buys episode. Let us know in the comments, do you like these buys? Are these guys that you're going to go after? And who are some other buys that you would maybe consider? We appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time.
See ya.